Admiral Sarah Chen walked through the long hallway that led to the Galactic Council chambers. Her black uniform was clean and pressed. The silver stars on her shoulders caught the strange blue light that came from the walls. She had been walking for 10 minutes, but the hallway seemed to go on forever. This was done on purpose. The council wanted visitors to feel small and afraid before they even entered the main room. Sarah was not afraid. She was angry. Behind her walked Captain Marcus Webb, her second in command. He carried a small metal case that held data chips and holographic recordings. The evidence they brought today would shock the council. At least Sarah hoped it would. After 3 months of sending reports and getting no answer, she was starting to lose hope that the council cared about what was happening to human colonies. The huge doors opened without a sound. Sarah stepped into the council chambers and felt the weight of hundreds of eyes watching her. The room was massive, bigger than a football field. In the center was a circle of raised platforms where the council members sat. Each platform held a different alien species. Some looked almost human. Others were so strange that Sarah still felt surprised when she saw them, even after 20 years of space travel. The crystalline collective sat on platforms made of pure light. They looked like living diamonds, tall and thin, with faces that changed color when they spoke. The Vorthan Empire representatives were covered in dark metal armor that seemed to move on its own. The Zephyrian collective was the strangest of all, a group mind that spoke through dozens of small floating creatures that moved together like a school of fish. At the highest platform sat the council speaker, a being called High Arbiter Veltar. He was from a species called the Eternal Judges. They lived for thousands of years and claimed to be wise and fair. Sarah thought they were just old and tired. Admiral Chen of the Terran Federation, Veltar spoke in a voice that sounded like wind through metal pipes. "You have requested this emergency session. State your business." Sarah walked to the center of the room. A small platform rose from the floor under her feet, lifting her up so the council could see her better. She took a deep breath and began to speak. "Honored council members, I come before you today to report a crime against humanity. For the past 6 months, the Kethmori hive has been attacking human colonies in the Outer Rim territories. These are not raids or small attacks. This is systematic genocide." A wave of sound went through the chamber as different species began talking to each other in their own languages. Sarah heard clicking, humming, and sounds that hurt her ears. The council speaker raised one thin hand, and the room became quiet. "Admiral Chen, these are serious charges. Do you have proof of these claims?" Sarah nodded to Captain Webb. He opened the metal case and pulled out a small device. When he pressed a button, the air above Sarah's head filled with moving pictures made of light. The hologram showed a human colony called New Haven. Sarah had visited this place 2 years ago. It was a beautiful world with green fields and clear blue oceans. The colonists were farmers and scientists who just wanted to live in peace. The images that played now showed something very different. The green fields were black and burned. The oceans were red with blood. Bodies lay scattered everywhere, men, women, and children. Some of the bodies had been torn apart by claws. Others showed signs of acid burns. The Kethmori had not just killed the humans, they had made them suffer first. This was New Haven Colony, population 43,000, Sarah said. Her voice was steady, but inside she felt sick. She had seen these images dozens of times, but they never got easier to watch. The attack happened 4 months ago. We received one distress signal before all communication stopped. The hologram changed to show another colony. This one was called Freedom Station. It had been built inside an asteroid. The Kethmori had somehow gotten inside and killed everyone. The bodies were found floating in the zero-gravity corridors. Freedom Station, population 12,000, attacked 3 months ago. More images followed. Cedar Grove Colony, Riverside Settlement, New Tokyo Station. Each one showed the same thing, total destruction and the death of every human man, woman, and child. By the time the hologram finished, Sarah had shown the council evidence of 17 attacked colonies, over 200,000 dead humans. The chamber was completely silent. Even the alien species that never stopped making noise had become quiet. Sarah looked up at the council members, trying to read their faces. Some looked shocked, others seemed bored, a few appeared to be sleeping. High Arbiter Veltar was the first to speak. "These images are disturbing. However, the Outer Rim territories are not under full council protection. The colonists chose to settle in dangerous areas." Sarah felt her anger growing. "With respect, High Arbiter, these colonies were established under the Frontier Protection Accords. The Terran Federation paid the required fees. We followed all the rules. These people had the right to expect protection. A new voice spoke from the council platforms. It belonged to Ambassador Crix of the trade union. He was a fat creature that looked like a giant slug with arms. The Kethmori hive has treaty rights in those sectors. Perhaps the human colonists violated their territory. The colonies were established in unclaimed space, Sarah replied quickly. We have all the survey records. There were no Kethmori hives within 50 light-years of any human settlement. Another council member spoke up. This was Councillor Thane from the Merchant Guild. Even so, the Kethmori are a protected species under the Galactic Diversity Protection Act. They cannot be held to the same standards as evolved species. Sarah could not believe what she was hearing. Protected species. They are intelligent creatures with space travel and advanced weapons. They plan these attacks. They choose to kill civilians. How does that make them a protected species? High Arbiter Veltar's face changed colors, shifting from blue to purple. This meant he was becoming annoyed. Admiral Chen, the Council has spent thousands of years maintaining peace in this galaxy. We do not make decisions lightly. The Kethmori hive has existed for millions of years. Humanity has only been in space for a few centuries. You are still learning your place in the galactic community. Sarah's hands formed fists at her sides. Our place, we have been members of this council for 50 years. We have followed every law, paid every tax, and sent our ships to fight in every war you asked us to join. We have earned our place here. A sound like laughter came from the Crystalline Collective's platform. Their representative, a being called Shard Singer Velthara, spoke in a voice like breaking glass. Humans are so emotional, so quick to anger. Perhaps this is why the Kethmori see you as a threat. A threat. Sarah's voice grew louder. Farmers and children are a threat. Scientists studying alien plants are a threat. What threat do babies pose to the Kethmori hive? The chamber began to fill with noise again as different species argued among themselves. Sarah heard words in languages she did not understand, but the tone was clear. Some council members were taking her side, most were not. Captain Webb stepped closer to Sarah and whispered in her ear, "Admiral, we're getting a message from Earth Command. Priority Alpha." Sarah's heart began to beat faster. Priority Alpha messages only came during the worst emergencies. She touched a small device on her wrist and listened to the coded message that came through her neural implant. What she heard made her blood turn cold. "High Arbiter," she called out, her voice cutting through the noise in the chamber. "I have just received word that 3 more human colonies have been attacked. The death toll is now over 300,000. How many more must die before the Council acts?" High Arbiter Veltar stood up on his platform. His body was 12 feet tall and thin like a stick. When he spoke, his voice carried easily through the large room. "Admiral Chen, the Council has discussed this matter. We have reached a decision." Sarah waited. Around her, the chamber became completely silent. She could hear her own heartbeat. The Council finds that human expansion into the Outer Rim has upset the natural balance of that region. The conflicts between humanity and the Kethmori hive are the result of this imbalance. Therefore, the Council votes to suspend all protection agreements with the Terran Federation regarding Outer Rim colonies. Human settlements in disputed areas are no longer under Council protection. Furthermore, the Council advises humanity to withdraw from all contested territories to prevent further conflicts. Sarah felt like she had been hit by a hammer. "You're abandoning us. You're telling us to give up our colonies and let the Kethmori kill whoever they want. We are telling you to be responsible," replied Councillor Thane. "Your species spreads too quickly and takes too much." The galaxy was at peace before humanity began its rapid expansion. Peace. Sarah's voice was full of disbelief. "There have been 12 wars in this galaxy in the past 50 years. We helped you fight half of them. We bled and died for Council interests. And now you abandon us when we need help." Shard Singer Velthara's crystalline body flickered with cold light. "Humanity must learn that actions have consequences. Your aggressive expansion has created this problem. You must solve it yourselves." Sarah looked around the chamber at the faces of the council members. Some looked guilty. Others seemed satisfied. A few appeared to be completely indifferent to the fate of 300,000 dead humans. "Very well," Sarah said finally. Her voice was quiet now, but it carried clearly through the room. "The Terran Federation will remember this day. We will remember who our friends are, and who they are not." She turned and began walking toward the exit. Captain Webb followed her, the metal case still in his hands. Behind them, the council members began talking among themselves, probably already moving on to other business. As Sarah reached the chamber doors, her neural implant chimed with another message from Earth Command. This one was even more urgent than the last. She read it quickly and felt a cold smile cross her face. The message was simple. "Aegis protocol authorized. Return to Earth immediately. Project Ghost Fleet is active. Time to show them what humanity can do when pushed to the wall." Sarah had heard whispers about Project Ghost Fleet for years. It was supposed to be a myth, a secret research program that some people said existed but no one could prove. The rumors said it was humanity's ultimate weapon, a technology so advanced and dangerous that it was kept hidden even from most government officials.
As she walked through the long hallway toward her ship, Sarah began to understand that the rumors might be true. The Council had made a terrible mistake today. They thought they were abandoning a weak species that would quietly accept defeat. They had no idea what was coming. Captain Webb caught up with her as they reached the docking bay where their ship waited. "Admiral, what's Project Ghost Fleet?" Sarah looked at him with eyes that seemed to glow with inner fire. "Captain, I think we're about to find out. Set course for Earth, maximum speed." "Yes, ma'am. Should I file a flight plan with Council Space Traffic Control?"
Sarah's cold smile grew wider. "No, Captain. I don't think we'll be following their rules anymore." As their ship lifted off from the Council station and jumped into hyperspace, Sarah thought about the last words she had heard from the Council. They had told humanity to learn that actions have consequences. Soon, the Council would learn that lesson themselves. The age of human patience was over. The age of human justice was about to begin. 18 months had passed since Admiral Chen left the Council chambers. 18 months of silence from humanity. The galaxy had grown comfortable with this quiet trade routes that once carried human goods, now carried cargo from other species. Space stations that humans had built were taken over by alien corporations. The Council told everyone that humanity had learned their lesson and gone home to lick their wounds. The Kethmori hive continued their expansion into former human territory. They built new nests on the dead worlds where human families had once lived. The hive queens laid millions of eggs in the ruins of human cities. The warrior castes patrolled the space lanes, making sure no human ships tried to return. Life in the galaxy went on as if humanity had never existed. Vextar worked late in his laboratory on the Council research station. He was a Zephyrian, one of the fish-like creatures that shared a group mind with others of his species. But Vextar was different. He had chosen to disconnect from the collective consciousness years ago to study other species without the bias of the group mind. This made him lonely, but it also made him the best xenobiologist in the galaxy. For months, Vextar had been studying human military history. What he found worried him greatly. Humans had a strange pattern when they fought wars. When they were winning, they fought like any other species. But when they were losing, when they were desperate, they became something else entirely. The records showed it clearly. When the ancient Romans invaded Britain, the local tribes seemed defeated. Then they learned new ways to fight and drove the invaders back. When the Mongols conquered most of Asia, the remaining free peoples adapted and eventually stopped the expansion. When Nazi Germany seemed ready to conquer the world, the other humans found ways to build weapons and strategies that had never existed before. Humans did not surrender when cornered. They evolved. Vextar had tried to explain this to the Council many times. He sent reports about human psychological profiles. He showed them examples from Earth's history. He warned them that 18 months of silence might not mean defeat. It might mean something much worse. The Council ignored him. High Arbiter Veltar told him to focus on more practical research. The other Council members said he was being paranoid. They believed that humanity was just another species that would accept their place in the galactic order when shown superior force. Vextar knew they were wrong. He was working on his latest report when the alarms began to sound. Red lights flashed throughout the research station. Emergency broadcasts filled the communication channels. Vextar's webbed fingers moved quickly across his computer interface, trying to find out what was happening. The first reports came from the outer edge of the galaxy. Long-range sensors had detected something strange. Ships were emerging from hyperspace in areas where no ships should be. The energy signatures were unlike anything in the galactic databases. The vessels appeared on sensors for a few seconds, then vanished completely. Vextar felt his gill slits flutter with excitement and fear. He had been expecting this. Captain Zork of the Merchant Guild patrol ship Heavy Prophet was having a bad day. His crew had been chasing what they thought were pirates for 6 hours. The ships kept appearing on their sensors, then disappearing before they could get a clear look. When they tried to follow the energy trails, they found nothing but empty space. Captain called his sensor operator, a nervous Talarian with too many eyes. "I'm picking up multiple contacts. They're everywhere." Zork looked at the main display screen. Dozens of red dots had appeared around his ship. The contacts were moving in perfect formation, surrounding the Heavy Prophet like predators circling prey. "Hail them," Zork ordered. "Find out what they want." "Sir, I can't get a clear reading on their communication systems. It's like they're using technology I've never seen before." Suddenly, the main screen lit up with an incoming transmission. The image that appeared made Zork's blood freeze in his veins. It was a human face, a woman with short gray hair and cold blue eyes. She wore a uniform that was black as space, with silver decorations that seemed to move and shift when he looked at them. "Merchant vessel Heavy Prophet," the human woman said.
Her voice was calm and emotionless. "You are carrying weapons to Kethmori space. Turn around and go home." Zork found his voice after a few seconds. "This is Captain Zork of the Merchant Guild. We are operating under valid council trade permits. We have the right to free passage." The human woman's expression did not change. "The council's authority is no longer recognized in this sector. You have 60 seconds to change course." "Now wait just a minute," Zork said, his fear turning to anger. "Humans have no authority here. The council stripped your protection rights. You can't tell us what to do." The woman on the screen smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. 50 seconds. Zork looked at his weapons officer. "Can we fight them?" The weapons officer, a veteran of many space battles, studied his instruments with growing confusion. "Captain, I can't lock onto their ships. Our targeting computers say there's nothing there, but I can see them on the screen." 30 seconds. Zork was the leader of a successful trading company. He had faced pirates, space storms, and alien tax collectors. He was not easily frightened, but something about the human woman's calm certainty made him nervous. 20 seconds. "Captain," his sensor operator said urgently, "I'm reading massive energy buildups from the unknown vessels. Whatever weapons they have, they're unlike anything in our databases." 10 seconds. Zork made his decision. "Helm, change course. Take us back to council space." "Wise choice," the human woman said. The transmission ended, and the mysterious ships vanished from the Heavy Prophet sensors as suddenly as they had appeared. Zork spent the next 3 hours writing his report. He tried to explain what had happened, but the words seemed inadequate. How could he describe ships that appeared and disappeared at will? How could he explain weapons that his sensors could not identify? How could he make the council understand that the humans had returned with technology that seemed impossible? Similar reports came in from across the galaxy over the next few days. Phantom ships appearing near Kethmori space, unknown vessels intercepting weapons shipments, strange energy signatures detected in empty space. Each report was more unsettling than the last. The pattern became clear quickly. The mysterious ships were not attacking anyone except the Kethmori and their allies. Trade vessels carrying normal cargo were left alone. Passenger ships were ignored completely. But any vessel carrying weapons, military supplies, or reinforcements to Kethmori territory was stopped. The interceptions were always the same. A calm human voice would appear on the communication screen and give a simple warning. Ships that obeyed were allowed to leave. Ships that refused to comply simply vanished. Queen Sektar of the Kethmori 7th Hive received the first reports with amusement. She was a massive creature, the size of a small building, with acid for blood and claws that could cut through spaceship armor. Her nest was built inside a hollowed-out asteroid in what used to be human space. The walls were decorated with human skulls and the burned remains of colonial flags. "Humans," she clicked to her warrior offspring. "They return like scavengers to pick at the bones. Send 3 swarms to destroy these ghost ships. Show them what happens to prey that does not know it is dead." The Kethmori swarms launched from hidden nests throughout the sector. Each swarm contained 50 bioships, living creatures bred for war. The bioships had thick armor made of bone and cartilage. Their weapons were organs that shot acid and razor-sharp spines. They had been designed specifically to fight human vessels, and they had never lost a battle. The first swarm found the human ships near the ruins of New Haven Colony. The Kethmori warriors saw 12 vessels that looked like nothing they had ever encountered. The ships were sleek and dark, with surfaces that seemed to bend light around them. They moved in formations that hurt to look at, as if they existed partially outside normal space. Swarm leader Keknoth did not hesitate. He ordered his 50 bioships to attack immediately. The Kethmori had learned that humans fought better when they had time to think and plan. Quick, overwhelming force was the best strategy. The bioships charged forward, their acid projectors charging with deadly energy. They expected the human vessels to scatter and run, as human ships had always done in the past. Instead, the mysterious vessels simply waited. When the swarms came within weapons range, the human ships did something impossible. They flickered and became transparent, like ghosts made of starlight. The Kethmori weapons passed through them without effect, hitting nothing but empty space. Then the human ships became solid again and began to fire back. Keknoth had fought in 1,000 battles. He had destroyed space stations, conquered planets, and killed millions of humans, but he had never seen weapons like these. Beams of light that seemed to come from nowhere struck his bioships and simply erased them from existence. Not destroyed, not blown apart, but deleted as if they had never been there at all. In less than 60 seconds, all 50 bioships were gone. Keknoth himself survived only because his ship's biological brain shut down all systems and played dead. When he finally restarted his vessel and fled back to the hive, he brought news that filled even Queen Sektar with dread. The humans had returned, and they had brought weapons that could unmake reality itself. The news spread through the galaxy faster than light. Emergency council sessions were called. Military leaders studied the scattered reports and tried to understand what they were seeing. Scientists analyzed the energy signatures and found patterns that violated the known laws of physics. Dr. Vextar stood before the council once again, this time not as a decorned researcher, but as the only person who seemed to understand what was happening. Honored council members, he said, his voice carrying clearly through the great chamber, I warned you that humans do not surrender when cornered. They adapt. They evolve. For 18 months we have had no contact with Earth or the human colonies. We assumed they were defeated. We were wrong. High Arbiter Vextar's crystalline face showed colors that indicated deep concern. Dr. Vextar, what are you saying? That humanity has developed new weapons in just 18 months. Vextar's fish-like features remained calm, but his voice carried the weight of terrible certainty. No, High Arbiter, I believe they have developed new science. The reports describe technology that operates outside our understanding of physics, ships that can phase in and out of normal space-time, weapons that delete matter at the quantum level, energy sources that seem to tap into forces we cannot even measure. Councillor Thane from the Merchant Guild shifted nervously on his platform. That's impossible. No species can advance that quickly. It takes millions of years to develop such technology. Unless, Vextar said quietly, they are not developing it themselves. The chamber fell silent. Every council member understood the implication immediately. You think they have outside help, Shard Singer Velthara said, her crystalline voice filled with harmonics of fear. Vextar nodded slowly. Human legends speak of ancient ruins found in their solar system, artifacts that predated their civilization by millions of years. Most council members dismissed these as myths, but what if they were real? What if humanity found something left behind by a previous galactic civilization, something that our ancestors deliberately forgot? The silence in the chamber was complete. Every species in the galaxy had legends of the precursors, the ancient race that had supposedly ruled the stars before the current galactic civilization began. Most considered these legends to be fairy tales. The pattern fits, Vextar continued. When faced with extinction, humans would use any tool available to them. If they found precursor technology, they would study it, reverse engineer it, and improve upon it. The 18 months of silence was not defeat, it was preparation. High Arbiter Veltar stood up slowly on his platform. His ancient face showed colors that had not been seen for centuries. If what you say is true, then we have made a terrible mistake. We have not just abandoned humanity, we have created an enemy with the power of the precursors themselves. From somewhere in the galaxy, carried on quantum frequencies that bypassed all known communication methods, a message began to broadcast. It reached every ship, every station, every world where intelligent life existed. The voice was human, female, and absolutely calm. People of the galaxy, Admiral Sarah Chen's voice said, reaching across impossible distances. 18 months ago, the Galactic Council abandoned humanity to genocide. They told us to accept our fate and withdraw from the stars. They believed we would quietly disappear. The message continued, and with each word, the reality of the situation became clearer to every listener. They were wrong. Humanity has not withdrawn. We have evolved. We have learned, and we have prepared. The Aegis Protocol is now active. The age of council rule is ending. What comes next depends on the choices you make in the days ahead. The transmission ended, but its echo seemed to hang in the air of 1,000 worlds. Across the galaxy, people looked up at the stars and wondered what humanity had become during those 18 months of silence. In the depths of space, ghost ships continued their patrol routes, waiting for orders that would reshape the galaxy forever. The Council had betrayed humanity, thinking they were abandoning a weak and defeated species. Soon they would learn exactly how wrong they had been. The first warning came at 0600 Galactic Standard Time. Every communication device on Nexus Prime received the same message simultaneously. Televisions, radios, personal communicators, even the emergency systems in hospitals and schools. The voice that spoke was calm and clear, with a slight accent that marked the speaker as human. Citizens of Nexus Prime, Admiral Sarah Chen said, her image appearing on 12 billion screens across the planet. You are not our enemy, your leaders are. Governor Malthan of Nexus Prime was eating breakfast when his aide rushed into his private dining room. The aide was a young Tellarian whose multiple eyes were wide with panic. Governor, you need to see this, the aide said, activating a wall screen. Malthan looked up from his meal and saw a human woman in a black uniform. She had grey hair and cold blue eyes that seemed to look directly at him through the screen. Behind her, he could see what looked like a spaceship bridge, but the technology was unlike anything he had ever seen. Panels of light floated in the air without visible support. Crew members moved between workstations that seemed to be made of pure energy.
I am Admiral Sarah Chen of the Terran Federation, the woman continued. 18 months ago, your council voted to abandon humanity to genocide. They told us to accept our fate and disappear quietly. Today we begin to show them the consequences of that decision. Malthan grabbed his emergency communicator and tried to contact his military commanders. The device was dead. He tried his backup systems, also dead. Every communication system in the planetary government was offline. On the screen, Admiral Chen continued speaking. The people of Nexus Prime are innocent of their leader's crimes. You will not be harmed. However, your world's connection to the Council network ends today. Consider this a lesson in what abandonment truly means. The transmission ended. For a moment, nothing seemed to change. Then slowly, things began to go wrong. The lights in Malthan's dining room flickered and went out. Emergency power kicked in, but that failed too within minutes. Across the planet, power grids that had operated perfectly for centuries began to shut down in carefully planned sequences. The shutdown was not random. Hospitals remained powered, along with water treatment plants and food distribution centers. Schools stayed online. Emergency services continued to function. But everything connected to galactic commerce, government, or military operations simply stopped working. Transport Coordinator Velnash was trying to manage the morning rush hour when her control systems began failing one by one. The massive orbital elevators that carried cargo and passengers between the planet's surface and its space stations stopped moving. Not crashed, not broken, just stopped, as if someone had found the off switch for technology that should not have had an off switch. "This is impossible," she muttered, watching as indicator lights across her control board turned from green to red. "These systems have triple redundancies. They can't all fail at once," but they were failing. The space traffic control network that managed thousands of ships coming and going from Nexus Prime went dark. The orbital trading stations that processed trillions of credits worth of commerce every day powered down like sleeping giants. The hyperspace communication relays that connected Nexus Prime to the rest of the galaxy transmitted their last messages and fell silent. Dr. Kesvar worked in the Planetary Research Institute. She was a Zephyrian like Dr. Vextar, but she had never disconnected from her people's group mind. When the shutdown began, she felt the confusion and fear of her colleagues through their shared consciousness. "What is happening?" asked Professor Thelmar, a crystalline being whose research focused on galactic communication networks. Kesvar studied the patterns of the shutdown on her instruments. What she saw made no sense according to everything she knew about technology. "It appears that someone is selectively disabling specific systems while leaving others untouched, but that should be impossible. Our networks use quantum encryption and molecular-level security. No one should be able to access them remotely." "No one we know about," Professor Thelmar replied grimly. Within 6 hours, Nexus Prime was effectively isolated from the galaxy. Ships could still take off and land, but the traffic control systems that managed interstellar commerce were gone. The banking networks that processed financial transactions across dozens of star systems had vanished. The government communication channels that allowed planetary leaders to speak with the Council were silent. Most frighteningly of all, the planetary defense grid had powered down completely. Nexus Prime, one of the most heavily defended worlds in the galaxy, was now as vulnerable as a frontier colony. Governor Malthan stood in his emergency command center, surrounded by military officers who had no idea what to do. General Vork, his security chief, was a veteran of many wars. He had fought pirates, rebels, and invasion fleets, but he had never faced an enemy who could turn off his weapons without firing a shot. "Sir," General Vork reported, "we've lost contact with our orbital defense platforms. The planetary shield generators are offline. The early warning sensor network is dark. Whoever is doing this has turned us into a sitting target. Can we contact the Council?" Malthan asked. "No, sir. All hyperspace communication is down. We're completely cut off." A new voice came from the command center's main speakers. It was Admiral Chen again, speaking as if she was in the room with them. "Governor Malthan," she said, "do not attempt to reactivate your military systems. Any hostile action will be met with appropriate response." Malthan looked around the room frantically. "How is she accessing our systems? This facility is supposed to be completely secure." "Honored Governor," Admiral Chen continued, "your security is based on technology that is several million years out of date. We are not accessing your systems. We are rewriting them." The main screen in the command center activated without anyone touching the controls. Admiral Chen's face appeared, but now she was not on her ship's bridge. She seemed to be standing in space itself, with stars and nebulae swirling around her like a living backdrop. "You want to understand what has happened to your world," she said. "Very well. Observe." The image changed to show Nexus Prime from orbit. The planet looked normal, but the space around it was filled with ships that hurt to look at directly. They seemed to exist in multiple dimensions at once, their outlines shifting and changing as if they were made of folded space-time. "These are the vessels of the Terran Aegis fleet," Admiral Chen explained. "They operate using principles that your science considers impossible. We can edit the quantum foam that forms the foundation of reality.
We can rewrite the information patterns that define matter and energy. We can step outside of normal spacetime and act upon the universe from angles that do not exist in your mathematics. One of the human ships in the image extended what looked like a beam of twisted light toward an asteroid floating near the planet. The asteroid did not explode or break apart. It simply ceased to exist, as if it had been deleted from reality itself. This is what we learned during our 18 months of silence, Admiral Chen continued. When the Council abandoned us, we had a choice. We could accept defeat and fade away quietly, or we could become something new. We chose to evolve. General Vork stepped forward, his pride overcoming his fear. What gives you the right to do this? Nexus Prime is a peaceful world. We have done nothing to harm humanity. Admiral Chen's expression did not change. General Vork, Nexus Prime processes 40% of the weapons trade that supports the Kethamori hive. Your planet's banks have financed the genocide of over 300,000 humans. Your government voted to support the Council's decision to abandon us. You may tell yourselves you are peaceful, but your hands are covered in human blood. The general's face turned pale. Everything Admiral Chen had said was true. Nexus Prime's economy was built on trade, and much of that trade involved selling weapons and supplies to species throughout the galaxy. The fact that some of those weapons went to the Kethamori was considered just business. We were following Council law, Governor Malthan protested. The trade was legal and approved. Council law, Admiral Chen repeated, and her voice carried a note of cold amusement. The same Council law that declared humanity's protection treaties void. The same Council authority that told us to quietly accept genocide. Tell me, Governor, do you still believe in the authority of beings who would sacrifice an entire species for political convenience? The transmission ended, but the effects of the human action continued to spread. Within hours, similar shutdowns were reported from 17 different worlds throughout Council space. Each planet received the same calm message from Admiral Chen. Each world found their connections to the galactic community severed with surgical precision. The pattern was always the same. Critical infrastructure remained functional: hospitals, schools, water treatment, food distribution. But everything connected to galactic government, military operations, or weapons trade simply stopped working. The humans were not destroying these worlds. They were quarantining them. On the Council station, emergency sessions continued around the clock. Representatives from affected worlds demanded action. Military commanders insisted that their fleets be sent to stop the human attacks. The problem was that no one knew how to fight an enemy who could rewrite reality itself. High Arbiter Veltar called for order as arguments raged across the Council chambers. Species that had been allies for centuries were turning against each other. Some blamed the Council for abandoning humanity in the first place. Others insisted that the humans had become too dangerous to negotiate with. Honored Council members, Veltar said, his voice carrying the authority of millennia, "We face a crisis unlike any in galactic history. The humans have acquired technology that we do not understand. They are using this technology to systematically isolate our worlds from the galactic community." Councillor Thane raised one of his slug-like appendages. "High Arbiter, our military advisors report that human ships can phase in and out of normal space at will. Our weapons cannot target them effectively. How do we fight an enemy we cannot hit?" Before Veltar could answer, the chamber's communication systems activated without authorization. Admiral Chen's face appeared on every screen in the room. Behind her, the strange technology of her ship's bridge pulsed with alien energies. "Honored Council members," she said, her voice carrying easily through the vast chamber. "I thought it was time we spoke again." The chamber erupted in noise as different species shouted in their various languages. Some demanded to know how she had accessed their secure systems. Others called for immediate military action. Admiral Chen waited patiently for the noise to die down before continuing. 18 months ago, I stood in this chamber and begged for your help. I showed you evidence of genocide against my people. I asked for justice. You chose to abandon us instead." High Arbiter Veltar found his voice. "Admiral Chen, the Council is prepared to discuss terms for ending this conflict. We can negotiate new trade agreements, establish humanitarian aid for affected human colonies, even consider reparations for past injustices." Admiral Chen's cold smile appeared again. "Negotiation? You wish to negotiate with the same people you condemned to extinction? How interesting. Tell me, High Arbiter, what changed your mind? Was it the loss of trade revenue? The disruption of your weapons shipments? Or perhaps the realization that humanity is no longer the weak species you thought you could ignore?" Shard Singer Veltara spoke up, her crystalline voice ringing with harmonic overtones. "Admiral, your actions threaten galactic stability. Millions of innocent people are suffering because of your attacks on our infrastructure." "Innocent?" Admiral Chen's voice carried a note of genuine surprise. "Veltara, your people voted unanimously to abandon humanity. Every single member of the Crystalline Collective supported the decision to let us die. How does that make you innocent?" "We followed Council procedure," Veltara protested. "We voted according to galactic law, and I am following human law," Admiral Chen replied. The law that says when someone tries to destroy your family, you fight back with everything you have. The law that says genocide demands justice. The law that says betrayal has consequences. Dr. Vextar, who had been silent during the exchange, finally spoke up. Admiral Chen, what do you want? What will it take to end this conflict? Admiral Chen looked directly at him through the screen. Dr. Vextar, you tried to warn them about us. You understood what humanity becomes when cornered. Unfortunately, your colleagues chose not to listen. She paused, and when she spoke again, her voice carried the weight of absolute certainty. What we want is simple: justice for 300,000 murdered humans, accountability for the species that enabled their deaths, and assurance that genocide will never again be dismissed as merely maintaining galactic balance. And how do you propose to achieve that? Veltar asked. Admiral Chen's smile became truly frightening. By showing the galaxy what real consequences look like. What you have seen so far is merely the opening movement. The true symphony of justice has yet to begin. The transmission ended, leaving the council chamber in stunned silence. Outside, reports continued to arrive of more worlds being isolated, more systems going dark, more evidence that humanity had become something beyond their ability to control or understand. In the depths of space, the Aegis fleet continued its work. Ship by ship, world by world, the foundations of galactic civilization were being carefully dismantled by beings who had learned to reshape reality itself. The Council had thought they were abandoning a weak species to its fate. Instead, they had created their own executioners, and the execution had only just begun. The siege of the Council's capital world began not with explosions or armies, but with a single human ship appearing in the planet's upper atmosphere. A vessel materialized without warning during the middle of the day, hanging motionless above the planet's largest city like a dark star. Citizens across the capital world stopped what they were doing to stare up at the sky. The ship was unlike anything they had ever seen. It was massive, easily the size of a small moon, but it seemed to exist only partially in normal space. Parts of it appeared solid and real, while other sections looked like they were made of folded starlight. It hurt to look at directly, as if the human brain could not properly process what it was seeing. Chancellor Moradeth, the elected leader of the capital world, was in an emergency meeting when the ship appeared. She was a member of the Eternal Judges, the same species as High Arbiter Veltar. Her people had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years, and she had never imagined that any force could threaten their homeworld. How did it get past our defenses? She demanded, looking at her military advisors with growing panic. General Krath, commander of the Planetary Defense Forces, studied his instruments with confusion. Chancellor, according to our sensors, there is no ship there. Our detection grids show empty space, but we can see it with our own eyes. That's impossible, Chancellor Moradeth said. Nothing can fool our sensor networks. They use quantum detection methods that cannot be blocked or spoofed. Unless, said Dr. Fenter, the planet's chief scientist, they are operating outside the quantum framework entirely. If the ship exists in multiple dimensions simultaneously, our sensors would only detect the portions that exist in our reality. Before anyone could respond, every screen in the emergency command center activated simultaneously. Admiral Sarah Chen's face appeared, but she was not on her ship's bridge this time. She seemed to be standing in the command center itself, as if she was physically present in the room. Chancellor Morid, Admiral Chen said calmly, I am here to deliver a message to the Council. Chancellor Morid clerked around frantically. Her guards had drawn their weapons, but they had no target to aim at. Admiral Chen was clearly not physically present, but the projection was so real that it cast shadows on the floor. This is impossible, the Chancellor whispered. Our security systems are impenetrable. How are you accessing our networks? Admiral Chen smiled, that cold smile that had become famous throughout the galaxy. Chancellor, your security is designed to stop beings who operate within normal space-time. We do not. The holographic Admiral Chen raised her hand, and the air around her began to shimmer. Suddenly, the walls of the command center became transparent, showing the city outside. But the city was changing. Buildings that had stood for millennia were fading like ghosts. Streets were becoming empty corridors of light. The very fabric of reality seemed to be unraveling. What you are seeing, Admiral Chen explained, is a demonstration of what we call quantum editing. We can alter the information patterns that define matter and energy. We can rewrite the basic code of existence itself. General Krath stepped forward, his weapon still drawn. Stop this immediately. You're threatening millions of innocent civilians. General, Admiral Chen replied without looking at him. Observe more carefully. The view outside changed, and now they could see the city's inhabitants. The people were not disappearing with the buildings. Instead, they were standing in parks and open spaces that had not existed moments before. The fading buildings were being replaced with gardens, lakes, and recreational areas. The humans were not destroying the city. They were remaking it. The people of this world are not responsible for their leaders' crimes, Admiral Chen said. They will not be harmed. However, the Council's seat of power ends today. Chancellor Moradeth found her voice. You cannot do this. The Council governs 47 species across thousands of worlds. Galactic civilization depends on our leadership. Admiral Chen's expression became genuinely curious. Galactic civilization? Is that what you call a system that permits genocide for political convenience? A government that abandons entire species when it becomes inconvenient to protect them? She gestured, and the air filled with holographic images. They showed human colonies under attack. Families running from Kethmori warriors, children crying over the bodies of their parents, cities burning while council ships watched from a safe distance, forbidden to intervene. "This is your civilization," Admiral Chen said, her voice filled with cold fury. "A system where the strong devour the weak while the powerful look away, where justice is a luxury that only some species can afford." Dr. Fentar, who had been studying the quantum readings from the human demonstration, spoke up with a trembling voice. "Admiral, the technology you're using, it's based on precursor science, isn't it? You found something in your solar system." Admiral Chen nodded slowly. "Very good, Doctor. Yes, we found ruins on Pluto, ancient facilities that had been hidden for millions of years. When the Council abandoned us, we had 18 months to unlock their secrets. 18 months to become something new. The precursors were destroyed for a reason," Chancellor Moradeth said desperately. "Their technology was too dangerous. They nearly tore apart the fabric of space-time itself." "Nearly," Admiral Chen agreed. "But they failed because they tried to use their power for conquest. We are using it for justice. There is a difference." The holographic display changed again, showing space around the capital world. Hundreds of human ships were materializing in orbit, each one demonstrating the same impossible technology as the first. Some ships appeared to be made of pure energy. Others looked like geometric impossibilities, with surfaces that folded in on themselves in ways that violated basic mathematics. "The Aegis fleet is now in position around your world," Admiral Chen announced. "We are prepared to demonstrate what precursor technology can accomplish when properly applied." General Krath activated his communication systems and began broadcasting to his fleet commanders. "All units, prepare for immediate attack. Target the largest human vessel and fire at will." The capital world's orbital defense platforms powered up their weapons. Massive energy cannons that could destroy entire cities focused their targeting systems on the human ships. The planetary defense fleet, consisting of over 300 warships, moved into attack formation. "Fire," General Krath commanded. The space around the capital world lit up with weapons fire. Energy beams, plasma torpedoes, and quantum missiles streaked toward the human vessels. The combined firepower was enough to vaporize a small moon. Every single shot passed through the human ships without effect, as if they were firing at ghosts. "Impossible," General Krath whispered, watching his most powerful weapons accomplish nothing. Admiral Chen's hologram had not even flinched during the attack. "General, you are still thinking in 3 dimensions. Our ships exist in 11. Your weapons cannot reach angles that do not exist in your reality." She raised her hand again, and one of the human ships responded. A beam of twisted light reached out toward the planetary defense fleet. Where the beam touched the Council warships, they simply vanished. Not destroyed, not broken apart, but erased from existence as if they had never been built. In less than 30 seconds, the entire defense fleet was gone. "Now," Admiral Chen said calmly, "let me show you what betrayal costs." The largest human ship began to change shape. Its impossible geometry shifted and flowed like liquid metal. Sections that had existed in multiple dimensions folded back into normal space, revealing weapon systems that hurt to look at directly. "These are quantum disintegration arrays," Admiral Chen explained, as if she was giving a science lecture. "They can edit matter at the subatomic level. Watch." One of the capital world's 3 moons was caught in the beam from the human weapon. The moon did not explode. Instead, it began to come apart at the molecular level. Rock and metal separated into their component atoms, which then separated into their component particles, which then simply ceased to exist. Within 10 minutes, where there had once been a moon the size of Earth's Luna, there was nothing but empty space. The silence in the emergency command center was complete. Every person in the room stared at the screens in absolute terror. They had just watched a celestial body be deleted from reality, like a mistake on a computer file. "This is what happens to those who enable genocide," Admiral Chen said. "This is the price of betrayal. This is justice." Chancellor Moradeth fell to her knees. "Please," she whispered, "we can change. We can make reparations. We can—"
"You can be silent," Admiral Chen interrupted. "For 18 months, you refused to listen to our pleas for help. Now you will listen to our judgment." The holographic display showed other council worlds throughout the galaxy. On each one, human ships were demonstrating the same impossible technology. Moons were being disintegrated. Orbital stations were being edited out of existence. The mighty Vorthan dreadnoughts, pride of their empire, were dissolving like sugar in rain. "The Council's military power is being systematically removed," Admiral Chen announced. "Your ability to enforce your will through force is ending. What comes next depends on how quickly you learn to accept responsibility for your crimes." Dr. Fenter, his scientific mind still working despite his terror, asked the question that everyone was thinking. "Admiral, what do you want from us? What would it take to end this?" Admiral Chen's image turned to look at him directly. Doctor, what we want is simple. We want the council to dissolve itself. We want the species that voted to abandon humanity to face justice. We want a new galactic government built on principles that do not permit genocide. And if we refuse, Chancellor Mordeth asked. Admiral Chen's smile returned, colder than before. Then you will discover what extinction feels like from the inside. She gestured again, and the holographic display showed Earth. But it was not the Earth that the Council remembered. The planet was surrounded by massive space stations that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Ships were launching from hidden bases throughout the solar system. The asteroid belt had been transformed into a vast industrial complex that built impossible technologies. Humanity is no longer the species you abandoned 18 months ago, Admiral Chen said. We have become something new, something that does not forget, something that does not forgive, something that does not accept injustice. The transmission began to fade, but Admiral Chen's final words carried clearly through the command center. You have 24 hours to begin dismantling the council government. After that, we will dismantle it for you, and we will not be as gentle with the institutions as we have been with the people. The hologram vanished, leaving the council leaders alone with their fear and the growing realization that they had created their own destroyers. Outside, the human ships continued their demonstrations of impossible power, weapons that could edit reality, defenses that existed outside normal space-time, technology that turned the fundamental forces of the universe into tools of war. The galaxy's oldest and most powerful civilization was discovering what it meant to face an enemy that could rewrite the very laws of physics, and they were learning that some betrayals could never be forgiven.
24 hours passed, like a countdown to the end of the world. Across the galaxy, council representatives debated, argued, and pleaded with each other. Some wanted to surrender immediately. Others insisted that giving in to human demands would destroy galactic civilization. A few suggested trying to negotiate or find a middle ground. The debates accomplished nothing. High Arbiter Veltar stood in the council chambers for what he knew would be the last time. The great hall that had seen thousands of years of galactic governance was nearly empty. Many council members had fled to their homeworlds. Others had simply vanished, hoping that distance might protect them from human justice. The few who remained sat in silence, watching the countdown timer that someone had placed on the main display. 2 hours, 1 hour, 30 minutes. No one spoke. There was nothing left to say. Dr. Veltar had chosen to stay. He had been right about humanity, and he wanted to see how his predictions would end. As the final minutes ticked away, he noticed something strange happening to the air in the chamber. It began to shimmer, like heat waves rising from hot concrete. "They're coming," he said quietly. The countdown reached 0. Admiral Sarah Chen materialized in the center of the council chambers, but she was not a hologram this time. She was physically present, standing on the floor where so many species had once debated the fate of the galaxy. Behind her, the air continued to shimmer as more humans began to appear. They were not the humans that the council remembered. These beings wore uniforms that seemed to be made of controlled energy. Their eyes glowed with inner light. When they moved, reality seemed to bend around them, as if they existed in more dimensions than normal space allowed. "High Arbiter Veltar," Admiral Chen said, her voice carrying easily through the vast chamber. "Your time is over." Veltar tried to speak but found that his voice would not work. None of the remaining council members could make a sound. The humans had somehow edited their ability to communicate out of existence. "You chose not to dismantle the council voluntarily," Admiral Chen continued. "Therefore we will dismantle it for you. We will also dismantle everything that supported and enabled it." She raised her hand, and the air filled with images of planets throughout the galaxy. Hundreds of worlds, home to trillions of beings. The species that had voted to abandon humanity, the governments that had enabled genocide, the civilizations that had chosen power over justice. "The Extinction Protocol is now active," Admiral Chen announced. "The quantum editing process will begin with the Council species' homeworlds and expand outward until all traces of your civilization have been removed from existence." Dr. Vextar watched in horror as the first world began to fade. It was Valthara Prime, homeworld of the Crystalline Collective. The planet did not explode or burn. Instead, it simply became less real, as if someone was slowly turning down the brightness of reality itself. The cities became transparent. The oceans turned to mist. The very matter that made up the world was being edited out of the universe's source code. Within minutes, there was nothing left but empty space where a planet and its 12 billion inhabitants had once existed. The process continued. World after world began to fade from existence. The Vorthan Empire's capital, home to the galaxy's most powerful military, the trade union's commercial centers where trillions of credits had been exchanged daily, the merchant guild's manufacturing worlds where weapons had been built and sold without regard for who they would kill. High Arbiter Veltar found his voice returning as the humans allowed him to speak. "You're committing genocide on a scale that dwarfs anything the Kethmari ever did," he said, his ancient voice filled with despair. Admiral Chen turned to look at him. Her eyes, which had once been merely cold, now glowed with energies that hurt to look at directly. "No, High Arbiter. We are performing surgery, removing the diseased portions of galactic civilization so that something healthy can grow in their place. The innocent will die with the guilty," Veltar protested. "As they did when you abandoned humanity," Admiral Chen replied. "The difference is that we are giving the innocent a choice. Those who truly had no part in the Council's crimes are being relocated to safe worlds before their home worlds are edited. The guilty will face the same fate they condemned my people to." The images continued to show worlds fading from existence, but Dr. Vexstar noticed something that the others had missed. On some planets, the population was vanishing before the world itself was deleted. Ships that bent space-time were evacuating cities, taking the innocent to safety while leaving the infrastructure of oppression to be erased. "You're being selective," Dr. Vexstar said with growing understanding. "You're not killing everyone. You're editing out the systems of power while preserving the people who had no choice in their government's decisions." Admiral Chen nodded approvingly. "Very good, Doctor. You understand the difference between justice and revenge. The farmers on Velthara Prime had no say in their government's vote to abandon humanity. The children in Velthan schools never chose to support genocide. They are being relocated to worlds where they can build better societies. But the leaders," Velthara said, beginning to understand the scope of what was happening, "the officials, the military commanders, the ones who made the decisions, are learning what extinction feels like," Admiral Chen finished. "As my people learned, as 300,000 human civilians learned when you left them to die, the editing process accelerated. Entire star systems began to vanish as human ships moved through the galaxy like cosmic surgeons. The Kethmori hive worlds were among the first to go, their warrior castes and hive queens simply deleted from reality as if they had never existed. The weapons factories that had supplied genocide were erased. The government buildings where the vote to abandon humanity had been made became empty space, but it was not random destruction. Dr. Velthara watched as the humans carefully preserved hospitals, schools, cultural centers, and research facilities. They were selectively removing the machinery of oppression while maintaining the foundations of civilization. "What will you do with the survivors?" he asked. Admiral Chen gestured, and new images appeared in the air. They showed green worlds with clean cities and advanced technology. But the technology was different from what the galaxy had known before. It seemed more organic, more in harmony with natural systems. "We are establishing new colonies for those we have relocated," she explained. "Worlds where they can learn to build societies based on justice rather than power, where genocide is not a political option, where the strong protect the weak instead of devouring them." High Arbiter Veltar felt his ancient body beginning to fade. The editing process had reached him personally. As one of the beings most responsible for the Council's decision to abandon humanity, he was being deleted from existence itself. "Will you rule them?" he asked as his voice began to fail. "Will you become the new Council?" Admiral Chen's expression softened slightly, showing a hint of the woman she had once been before humanity was forced to evolve beyond recognition. "No, High Arbiter, we will guide them until they can govern themselves. Then we will withdraw to our own space and let them build their own future. Rule through fear and power is what created this situation. We will not repeat your mistakes." Veltar's body became transparent as his personal timeline was edited out of the universe. With his last words, he asked, "What if they make the same choices we did? What if they choose power over justice again?" Admiral Chen's reply followed him into non-existence. "Then they will learn the same lesson you learned today. Justice delayed is not justice denied. It is justice made absolute." The editing process continued for days. When it was finished, over half the galaxy's star systems had been changed. The Council species' homeworlds were gone, erased so completely that even their names were being forgotten. The governments that had enabled genocide were deleted from history. The trade networks that had profited from suffering were wiped clean. But in their place, something new was growing. The survivor colonies that humanity had established were beginning to communicate with each other. They were sharing resources, knowledge, and most importantly, a common understanding that the strong had a responsibility to protect the weak. Admiral Chen stood on the bridge of her flagship, watching the final reports come in. Her crew, enhanced by precursor technology until they were more than human but still recognizably the children of Earth, worked at their reality editing consoles with quiet efficiency. "Admiral," her tactical officer reported, "the protocol is complete. All primary targets have been removed from existence. The survivor colonies are establishing their own governance structures based on the justice frameworks we provided." Admiral Chen nodded.
Around her, the ship's bridge hummed with energies that operated outside normal physics. Through the viewports, she could see the new galaxy that humanity had created. Cleaner, more just, free from the systems that had allowed genocide to be dismissed as political necessity. Signal the fleet, she commanded. Begin Phase 2. It's time to build something better. Her communication officer, once human, but now something that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously, opened channels to Earth and the scattered human colonies that had survived the Kethmori attacks. The message was simple, but carried across impossible distances instantly. The Council is gone. Their civilization has been edited from existence. The guilty have faced justice. The innocent have been given a second chance. Humanity's task is complete. But even as the message went out, Admiral Chen knew that their work was not finished. They had removed the old system, but maintaining the new one would require constant vigilance. Power corrupted, and justice required eternal watchfulness. A new transmission began broadcasting across the galaxy, reaching every world where intelligent life existed. It was Admiral Chen's voice, but softer now, less cold than it had been during the days of judgment. People of the galaxy, she said, the age of council rule is ended. What comes next is up to you. We have given you clean worlds, just laws, and the tools to build better societies. Use them wisely. The message continued, and with each word, the galaxy's survivors understood that they were being given something precious and fragile, a second chance. We will watch from a distance. We will not rule you or control you, but we will remember what happened here. If you choose power over justice, if you enable genocide, if you abandon the innocent to die for political convenience, then you will face the same fate as those who came before you. Choose wisely, choose justice, choose to be better than your predecessors. This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the Terran Federation, signing off. The transmission ended, but its echo seemed to hang in the space between stars. Throughout the galaxy, on 1,000 different worlds, people looked up at the night sky and wondered what they would build with the second chance they had been given. Humanity had returned from the brink of extinction, not as conquerors, but as gardeners. They had pruned away the diseased branches of galactic civilization and planted seeds of something better. The age of the Council was over. The age of justice had begun. And somewhere in the depths of space, human ships continued their patrol routes, waiting and watching, ready to ensure that the lessons of the past would never be forgotten.